As an Alaskan, I have a lot more skin in the game, let's say, than perhaps others might, although my colleagues have covered, the tipping points for a lot of Arctic issues, not just for the state of Alaska. I like the reference to the F-35s in Fairbanks. We consider ourselves, Alaska, the tip of the spear when it comes to our nation's defense in the Arctic, but it's not just about national security, it's about people's security as well. So I appreciate the fact that we're talking about Arctic residents aside from just a particular region or a particular state. It's hard to reemphasize many of the things my colleagues have talked about, but let me try. Why should the United States care? Those of us who live in Alaska and have been working on Arctic policy issues for a very long time have been answering that question in this town for a very, very long time. And here's why. Because the United States has everything to gain by being actively engaged and, in fact, leading in the Arctic. If a new ocean was opening off the coast of the East Coast, it would get our attention. Well, a new ocean is opening off the coast of Alaska and the rest of the Arctic region. We should care about this for all the reasons we care about the other oceans and the other coasts. Everything from fisheries and managing stocks correctly to our national security, to our economic development, our opportunities and our challenges. If we're talking about opportunities and challenges, I think a particular opportunity is leadership in all of the issues that we've talked about here today. And I will give you a hook line about why I say the U.S. should be thinking about a plan to navigate the Arctic's 7 seas. Now, that's a hook, the 7 seas, but I could sum up in C's why the United States should care. Why should we care? The 7 C's. Climate. We can debate cause and effect, but the climate is changing. It's changing for everything. So if you want to build a port in the Arctic, you should have engineers who understand what it's going to look like 50, 60, 70 years down the road. Aside from our communities that literally must move because their ground is defrosting underneath them, not just in Alaska, but elsewhere around the state. Another C, commerce. Why should we care and lead in the Arctic? Because commerce is already happening. We should be at the forefront of that with our allies and others to think about the ways in which we will manage this ocean for commerce because it's happening. So we should be leaning forward about setting those frameworks for commerce. Commodities, everything from oil and gas to minerals to the ocean bed. The United States should lead discussions about what that looks like because it's happening and it will happen more. My next C is competition. As Heather and others pointed out, we have a competition in the Arctic. It may not be at war right now, and let's hope that it stays that way, and that's why the Arctic Council and other frameworks are so important. But we have to be mindful of the competition, commercial competition, military competition, on and on. There's a reason China is investing in the Yamal Peninsula in Russia. There's a reason. They have a long-term view of what their country will look like, and their country includes Arctic assets. And so hard currency to a Putin government to develop the Yamal Peninsula serves the Russian government. It also serves China. Cooperation. As many of us have talked about, it is the framework for the Arctic. It still is a zone of peace. We should lean forward on continued evolution of an Arctic Council, evolution of IMO assets, evolution of military assets. We have more studies than we can pile in this room on whether or not we should have another 1, 2, or 6 Coast Guard cutters. Let's get moving, get one. But let's move forward on the cooperative frameworks, understanding that they're not all friends out there. My next C is about our communities, all of our communities. They are going through rapid social, political, economic, and environmental change. That's why the United States should care. We have a stake in that change. And my final C is connectivity. And that's everything from IT and digital access to make sure that villages remote, regardless of which country, have access to telehealth, education, commerce, but also we need good data. So I would say that my connectivity hook on my 7th C is about research as well. We lead the world in research, but we better invest more in it, from Greenland to Alaska to around the circumpolar north and the Pacific Rim. You cannot make informed decisions without really good data, and data comes from a vibrant research capacity. Let me just take one more moment. We have a global Arctic. The Arctic is not emerging. It has already emerged. It is now a global Arctic. It's in our nation's interest to be actively engaged in this global market. Like I said before, a new ocean. Research is a driver. And I would also piggyback on what Stephanie said. There are other non-Arctic nations that have a stake in what happens in the north. If you think about the LNG ship that left Yamal earlier this summer, it went from the Yamal Peninsula, which could turn out 16 million metric tons of natural gas a year, and Yamal 2 will be coming online. That ship was built in the yards of South Korea. It was backed by Japanese and Chinese money. It took Russian gas to Chinese markets. We have a global Arctic. That's why the United States should be actively engaged in what that Arctic looks like. Thank you.